Let's add a dimension into our precision workflow. What's up? I'm Jonathan and welcome to Maker Tales, where I'm sharing my maker journey to help you go further in yours. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell icon to never miss an opportunity to keep making. With a really solid foundation of 2D precision design in Blender, let's go ahead and add a dimension to it. Now there is a lot to cover here, and I understand that quite a few of you have probably never touched a 3D program before. I will do my best to keep this slow and concise, but I need to keep the pace up because there is, quite frankly, 3 dimensions to cover now. I think we're far enough along in our Blender precision journey that it's time to dive into the 3D space. So we've done a lot of work here on the top view. Now the top view is great because this is where we do most of our CAD planning, so to speak. We create our 2D drawing and then from here we pull it out into the 3D space. If this is your first time dealing with a 3D space, I'm going to keep this slow, keep it simple and to the basics, as there's probably a lot about the 3D space that you've never seen before. So, first off, let's cover the navigation. Navigation is pretty simple in the sense that you use the middle mouse button and that will pivot around. Then we've got the shift middle mouse, which gives us our little flip panning, and then we've got a scroll mousing in and out. Now, to make this a little bit easier to see, what I'm going to do is we're going to select all of these. I'm going to hit X, delete them, and now I'm just going to roughly move this down on the Y to around here. So, the first and most basic and fundamental move when we're talking about the 3D object and the 3D space is an extrusion. So currently we have one face here, and to make this more or less equal for everyone, we're going to just quickly change our material here to a lovely pure white, because this here is probably the basics of where it comes from in 3D modeling. So now we have this lovely solid white here. So extrusions are as simple as they sound. They can only be done in edit mode, so let's select the object that we're wanting to extrude into the 3D space. And we're going to hit tab, and now here we are in what we've been used to in the edit mode, seeing this from the top down view, but within the 3D view. Now as you see, currently we don't really have this centered up, so what I'm going to do is select everything here. I'm going to select it all, so I'm going to hit A, I'm going to hit point, and this now centers me up. So when I'm doing my pivots, I'm pivoting around the center point. I'm going to hit 3 to go into face select. So the current object that we have has 2 faces. And now we're going to go and extrude. When we hit E, this is the extrusion tool. This can also be done over here on the side where there's a lot more to it, but we'll get to that soon. So let's hit E. And as you see, this blue line comes up. This is because the extrusion is constrained to the local axis of the face. Now, because we're going about and doing precision modeling, I want to make sure that you know that when you're doing an extrusion such as this, on the top left-hand side, as you can see, numbers are going up and down. So you can set here, let's say we wanted this to be exactly 10 millimeters, 1, 0. Oh, but it's flipped the other way. Well, what we could do here is we hit minus now, and it'll flip it to the other direction. We hit enter, and that's the move confirmed. And that there is our first extrusion into the 3D space. So let's hit tab. Now we have our 3D object here in the 3D space that we've extruded. If this is the first time interacting within the 3D environment, you probably have never heard of something called a normal. A normal is the face direction. So now that we're working within a 3D object, there's such thing as a face direction. This here is called the normal. The easiest way to see a normal is to click this little down overlays menu and click the face orientation. When we click this, you can see our cubes come out all red. This should be all blue. Now the reason why this is happening is because something called flipped normals has occurred. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this off once again, our face orientation. I'm going to go into the edit mode. Now within the edit mode, I'm going to go and select everything, I'm not going to select everything, deselect it. We're just going to go into the overlay and we're going to turn this on the bottom that says normals. I'm going to click this one here, nothing's going to happen, and now I'm going to put up the size. I'm putting up the size quite a bit so that you see that these things are sticking out the side. What these are normal identifiers. Now the reason why they're coming out like that is because the normal actual facing direction of each individual face here are facing inwards. So if I delete one face here, you're going to see that there's all these spikes inwards. That's because all the normals are facing inwards. This is one of the things that can really catch out people who are first interacting within the 3D space within Blender, is that normals are flipped inwards sometimes, and that breaks the operations. To fix this, inside of edit mode, you select everything, and then let's hit space to just see what we're going to be doing, and we're going to do something called recalculate normals. As you can see, it has a shortcut which is Shift-N, and it's one of probably the most used things when you're creating new objects. So let's go Shift-N or click this, and now you can see that all our little normal identifiers here are currently pointing outwards. Of course, if you had thousands of faces, this might be quite hard to see, and that's why I wanted to show you this other way of seeing normals using face orientation. Now, this means now when I click this, it should all be blue. And there you have it. It's now all blue because all the normals are facing outwards. I'm going to delete a face here once again, so you see inside it's all red because that is the back side of a face. Let's undo that deletion. So now that we know our object has been correctly normalized and all our faces are facing the right direction, let's turn this off so it's not so in our face. Now, as you can see, when we're moving around here on the object, it can sometimes be a little bit hard to see exactly what our object is and where our edges are. So I want to show you something over here. This little drop down has a shading option. So within the viewport shading, when you're in solid mode, you can change it to a whole bunch of different types. So we've got our default, this shinier version, and you can really explore here, see which one's the one that helps you be able to see your model the best. Or if you really want, you can go quite flat and crazy and see all sorts of crazy different settings here. But just for now, I'm going to keep things on the default, but I just wanted to point that out because that is something that can really help, especially when modeling something with lots of complicated edges, to be able to see where exactly edges are meeting with other faces. Let's cover our extrusion tool in a little bit more depth. So let's go back into edit mode, selecting our object. Let's turn off our normals here by clicking here once again. And now we're going to go into face select mode. We know that we have E, so extrude a face out. So we're going to hit E and extrude this out. We have our constraint on right this minute, so I'm going to extrude this out here. And now what I want to show you is that that constraint can be turned off. So when we select a face, we hit E and we're now fixed to the Z axis. If you want, you can hit X and extrude in the X direction, hit Z, extrude in the Z direction, Y in the Y direction. It doesn't really matter because you can change the constraint at any point. You can also turn it off by hitting the same axis twice, which now has you have a freeform movement. So let's go and freeform move this over in some weird direction like that. Now, let's say for some reason we're wanting to extrude these two faces here outwards. So you would think, okay, well, let's just hit E and that will give us, oh, but wait, that's not quite what you wanted. You're wanting more of an offset operation. You want this to be more of a line outwards that comes all the way around and goes back and comes back that way. Okay, so we know that pressing E gives you this type of extrusion. However, what you can do is select the faces you want, hit Alt-E, which gives you a little menu. This lets you do the normal extrusion of faces, the extrusion of faces along normals, and the extrusion of individual faces. Now that we understand what normals are, this is what we're wanting. We're wanting to extrude the face along the normal, because that means it's going to follow the direction that the face is facing. And now, with that set, we have this. Now, the problem is, as you can see, we don't really have correct offsets right this minute. To fix this, we press S. Pressing S gives you correct scaling as well with offset when you're doing this. And once again, you can type in here an offset amount, let's say 0.5. And there we have this lovely little offset scaled correctly of two faces. And this can be done for a corner piece as well. So let's go for an awkward shaped 3 faces here. Now, how would you go about offsetting this on the face? You do the shortcut Alt-E, and this lets you here go extrude face along normals. So there we have it. Now, one thing that you've got to keep in mind is you cannot rotate once you begin an extrusion. So let's undo this, rotate around so we have something that we can see what we're doing a little bit better. Maybe I wanted it more from this angle. Go Alt-E, extrude faces along normals. We have our weird offset right this minute, so let's hit S, which then gives us a scale proportional to what we're wanting. And then there we go. We'll let it go, and now we have this crazy shape going on here. Lastly, to wrap up, I really need to show you something very important. You remember the 3D cursor. I know we use the 3D cursor a lot within PDT, but it is extremely powerful here within the 3D space. So let's quickly just go over what the 3D cursor is. The 3D cursor is another cursor that's within the 3D environment. So this has 3 points of dimensionality, so to speak. Now, to move the 3D cursor, you can hold down Shift and right-click, and this moves the 3D cursor in space. Not very accurately, so if I let it go, it's going somewhere over there. If I let it go here, it's somewhere down there. But one of the default operations of the 3D cursor is when you go Shift, right-click, and move it, when it's over an object, it is snapping to the face. So if I let go here, this is going to be, oops, sorry, I let go on the wrong space. There we go. It's now on the face here. If I go back up here and I go Shift, right click over on this edge here, sorry, face, it's snapped to that face. And this is going to happen no matter where I drag it on here. Now, not very accurate when it comes to 3D precision though. However, currently we have our snapping of vertices selected. So that means if we go Shift, right click, and we hold down Control, this is now going to snap to the vertices of our 3D object. Now, why is this really important? This is really important because the 3D cursor can be used for a myriad of operations. Primarily, let's just say very roughly we wanted a cube to come out from here. If we went Shift, right click, now we have our 3D cursor there. And now if we go Shift A, we can create a cube. Now, the creation of all 3D objects, primitives, are created at the origin point, which is the 3D cursor. So the origin point of the 3D space is the 3D cursor. Now you've just heard me say the origin point, and I quickly covered the origin point over on my last video. Now the reason why, I'm just going to undo a little bit here before I carry on. The reason why the origin point is so important is because on an object like this that is extremely strange, and we do what I showed you in the last video. So let's go out of edit mode, select our object, right click, we're going to set the origin, and we're going to this time go origin to geometry. Now here's the strange part. we've got this way over here, but maybe we think that the center point of this geometry is probably, I don't know, maybe this vertex here. How would we go about setting this origin point to that vertex? Because I'm wanting to rotate from this z-axis point there. Right this minute, if I went and hit R and then hit Z, I wouldn't be able to rotate from there because I'm rotating from the origin point. So let's use our 3D cursor to make this possible. So holding down Shift, right click, and now I'm going to hold down Control. We're going to be snapping to that vertex. Now, I want to show you one other little quick thing here about snapping and all this rotation thing. Now that we're dealing with the origin point, this little drop down here is a sort of a control of what exactly is going to be the origin point for your individual object. As you see, one of them here is the 3D cursor, and here is individual origin. So if I hit 3D cursor, what do you think is going to happen right now? If I go about and rotate this on the Z. So I hit R, you can already tell the difference of what's happened here, and then I hit Z. It's now rotating from the 3D cursor. However, my origin point is not being moved and it's staying where it was originally set. But let's say we knew that in the future we definitely always want to rotate from there. So now what we would do is move this origin point to the 3D cursor. You might have seen this option before, and that is right clicking. We're going to set the origin, and we're going origin to the 3D cursor. And now you can see that the origin point has been moved to the 3D cursor. So now let's go and switch our origin point for our object back to individual origins. That means the individual origin of this shape is its origin. And now we go about and do R and Z, and it's going to rotate on its origin. Just to prove that it's rotating on its origin, let's move the 3D cursor. Remember how to do that? Shift, right click, so now the 3D cursor is away. Let's go R, Z, and rotating on the origin point. Now just lastly, before we wrap things up, I want to show you just a couple more things to make life a little bit easier. So the 3D cursor is very powerful indeed, and it has something called a pie menu. This pie menu you activate by going Shift S. This here opens up this menu, and it's a snapping menu for a whole bunch of different things, but for now, this here is what I want you to concentrate on. There's the cursor to the grid, cursor to the world origin, cursor to selected, cursor to active, and so on and so forth. So right this minute we could do cursor to selected, and it's going to move the 3D cursor to the origin point of the selected object. I usually use this pie menu, go here and go cursor to world origin so that I know it's in the 0, 0 position. However, there is a quicker way of doing that. Well, not really a quicker way. There's a quicker way of resetting the scene, so to speak. So let's move the 3D cursor over here. Let's say that we were somewhere way over here. And to reset the scene, so the 3D cursor is down in the middle at 0, 0, and our view is also at 0, 0, we would do Shift C. And that's to center our scene once again. Lastly, I need to make sure you understand what this origin point is. So let's go into the item and into the transforms. As you can see, right this minute, our X and Y and Z are at these locations here. Now, what exactly is this? This is actually the location of the origin point. So if we set the Z to 0, this moves the origin point down there. However, if we were to now right-click, set origin to the 3D cursor, the 3D cursor is currently set to the 0, 0, 0. And as you see, our origin is now 0, 0, 0 for the 3D object. A little caveat that you've got to keep in mind here is whenever you're in edit mode, nothing affects the origin point. So let's select everything, just move this, and as you can see, this is why our origin point is so crucial outside of edit mode. So if we move that over there, as you can see, now let's go back into object mode. Our origin point is over here, so if we went and selected this, hit R and hit Z, we're now rotating on our origin point. To fix this, you can either bring the object to the cursor or the cursor to the object. Now, here's a very quick one. I would like you to put the 3D cursor down here, and then I would like you to set the origin point and then bring the object back to the 0, 0 position. I hope you gave that a go. To do that, we go with our Shift, right click, Control, move it to the vertex, right click, set origin, origin to 3D cursor, and now we can drag select all of our locations here, hit that to 0, and that's brought it to the 0, 0. Bring the 3D cursor back to the 0, 0. That's Shift S, cursor to world origin. As you can see, we're going to be using the origin point a lot. So there's one last thing just before we end this video that I want to show you, which is something called the quick menu. This can be accessed by hitting Q. As you see, currently nothing is set, but as it says right here, right click on a button to add it to this menu. So right this minute you can tell that we're using this set origin, origin to 3D cursor a lot. So let's go ahead and right click here and add it to quick favorites. This means now that when we hit Q, our origin to 3D cursor is going to be selected. So Shift, right click, snap it somewhere randomly. Let's go right down here. And now we can go Q, make sure we have our object selected, Q, origin to 3D cursor. So this origin point is the control point, the mass point, the point of operation for a 3D object in object mode. I say this point of operation because this is where location is going to happen, this is where rotation is going to happen, and this is also where scale is going to happen. If we were to scale right this minute, this point right here would be the origin point of the scale operation. And there you have it, the very basics of adding a dimension into our precision models. Now, I really encourage you to take on my challenge down in the description. It's a little obstacle course for 3D modeling design. Now, it's very basic and it only covers what we've learned in this video. And on top of that, underneath the download link of that little course, there is also a solution link to an unlisted video where I've gone and step by step gone through all the solutions of the course so that you make sure that you're learning it in the right way. A huge thank you to my patrons. You guys are awesome, and I would love it if you're enjoying this course if you would consider supporting me there too. Thanks for watching, keep making, and let the quest continue.